So, like Mark said, I'm going to talk about the United States response to the Ukrainian crisis. Briefly, you can go online to cis.org and see multiple reports there on the subject. In the beginning, when all this happened, the Biden administration wanted to focus on proximity help, meaning helping refugees in the region, providing financial humanitarian aid to Ukrainians in Europe and to the countries that was hosting them. A little bit after that, with some pressure from perhaps refugee advocates, President Biden, when he went to Brussels, he said, we're going to bring 100,000 to the US. And when we talk about refugees, the one main pathway for refugees to the United States is the Refugee Resettlement Program, which is a refugee leaves the country of war, goes to a host country, and then those who cannot stay in the hosting country for several reasons are brought to the United States. There's a specific program with specific budget, specific ceiling, we call it ceiling, target on refugees, how many can come. But that said, not so many Ukrainian refugees had been coming to the United States even after this crisis. In the past decade, around 19,000 Ukrainians have come. This fiscal year, from October through May, only some less than 900 refugees came. They come mainly through a program called the Lautenberg Program that was set in the 1990s, that was supposedly set for people in the Soviet Union, the then Soviet Union, who were had religious persecution. So they would come as a group. It was an easier way to apply and come, not an individual process of persecution. They needed just to be part of this group, religious group, to be able to be admitted. So these Ukrainian refugees, we expect perhaps more of them. Another measure the Biden administration took was to give Ukrainians over here TPS, which is temporary protected status, which is not the same as the European one. You read about it, but the US has limited benefits linked to that. It means they can stay, and they don't need to go back. And what it also did on the border is with Title 42, which is because of COVID, you couldn't really apply for asylum, and you were able to be returned back from where you were, Mexico and stuff like that. For Ukrainians, they had the exemption. They could come and apply for asylum or come and be given parole, which is kind of a way to say authorization to enter the country. It's not an immigration status. So that's, in a nutshell, what's been happening. That exemption, the last exemption, supposedly ended on April 25th, because what the Biden administration did is create a new program called Uniting for Ukraine. Now, it's supposedly a private sponsorship program. It's a streamlined process. It's quicker because it's kind of all online. What happens is that somebody, a US-based, they call them US-based supporter, is in the United States, agrees to bring one beneficiary, an Ukrainian or a non-Ukrainian, if it's family member of a Ukrainian, who had left Ukraine following this crisis, and vouch, pledge, and apply online for a form. It's called Declaration of Financial Support. So this US-based supporter will say, I'm going to support financially this Ukrainian for the length of his stay, okay? And then the Ukrainian beneficiary can come under parole. He's not coming under refugee status. The US-based supporter, in a nutshell, doesn't need to be only a US citizen or green card holder or US national. African. They can be also asylees, parolees, those who have deferred enforcement, DED, I forgot what it's on. It's, anyway, so multiple people, asylees, can apply for this, to bring a Ukrainian here. What they need to do is say, we support the person. Now, however, this financial support can be, it can come from multiple sources. It doesn't need to come just from one person. So if I'm supporting a Ukrainian beneficiary, I don't need to have money. Organizations, NGOs, anybody can say, okay, we're going to add to this support list, and it will be taken into account. At the same time also, and I think that's a bit ironic, a Ukrainian who is coming as a beneficiary can add as a support his home in Ukraine or any asset he has. Anyway, it's a process all online. The form is sent, and then after vetting, etc., the Ukrainian can come. Each form has to be just for one, even if there are multiple families. So if you want to support different people, you have to have another form. So before they come, if they are approved, they have to have an attestation. It's not a test. It's just an attestation that they had a COVID test, a polio, etc. There's 1, 2, 3 medical attestation that they need vaccine, they need to have. So that's a quick process. So here's where it becomes interesting to me, what I found. Parole, when they come under parole, they don't have access to benefits, federal benefits, money, resettlement, refugee resettlement benefits. However, there's a new bill that was passed and is signed into law by Biden in May that gives Ukrainian parolees the same refugee resettlement benefits as refugee. So a parolee will come here with the benefits. Supposedly, it's financed privately. However, they will receive also public benefits. At the same time, if an organization is allowed to sponsor the Ukrainian benefit, indirectly, not directly, one person has to. Indirectly, it's federal money. There are 9 organizations, we call them refugee resettlement agencies, who work with the US State Department to help refugees when they come under the Refugee Resettlement Program. They are funded by the US government, by taxpayers' money. So these who take money from the US government can list themselves as a supporter financial of the Ukrainian, and then the Ukrainian will be accepted. It's kind of circling the thing. Also, remember that the parolee now, following this bill, can also get benefits. So a parolee who gets benefits can now sponsor a Ukrainian who will come under a parolee with the same benefits. So it is we need to be very careful when we look at the fine print, as we say, and understand how this money, where it's coming from, and perhaps what is portrayed as a private sponsorship is not as private as what we think it is. Money, we talked about the support. Lots of financial aid has been given to Ukrainian refugees and the countries who are hosting them. The last bill, I think, I'm only talking about humanitarian aid for refugees and food and etc. It's like $6 billion, I think, with this new bill. So I think I've said enough. No? Okay. Honestly, I think I've said enough. What is really interesting here is that we are supposedly resettling Ukrainians or bringing them under parole, but giving them the refugee resettlement benefits, who are not in a country of war, who have gone to Europe, who are been given benefits in Europe, temporary protective status, etc. And I'll end.